everybody. So yeah, it's turning into Airbrush month here on my channel. It was like Airbrush week last week, and it's this Airbrush week this week. So I just got a new airbrush. I got a new compressor and a new airbrush. I got a no-name compressor, like a Chinese kind of clone of like a Grex, or like a it's a good compressor. It's a great compressor, like, but it's, you know, it's a clone of like a branded compressor. It's a no brand, you know, compressor. And then I got a Harder and Steamback airbrush, and so the Harder and Steambacks, they're kind of like, people compare them to like the Mercedes or the BMW of airbrushes, and like a lot of like the big mini painter like YouTubers, you always see them, they have their Harder and Steamback Infinity, which is like, it's a $300 airbrush, you know, it's like the top of the line. And but they're very much like the BMWs. Like, when they work, they're amazing, and then they when they break, or when you don't put premium gas in them, they don't work so good. And like it's like that. And I ran into some problems like experimenting with mine. So yeah, I got it. I wanted to play with it, and I thought, what do I have sitting in my pile of shame that is like screaming to be airbrushed? I thought, oh, my Nighthaunts, you know, like I actually have a lot of Nighthaunts. I don't know how many points I have with them, but one of my friends wants to play. We've been talking about playing Warcry. So I thought I could easily make a Warcry, you know, a warband or squad of Nighthaunts, and you know, we're still want to do like Frostgrave and stuff on here, but we're gonna start doing Warcry too, I think, on this channel. And so, anyways, yeah, I started to paint up my my Warcry warband, and then these guys are the they're like the troops. They're the guys that just get knocked down, you know, and they get back up again too, because they're Nighthaunts. But anyways, yeah, I love these minis. I rescued them, you know. I got them off eBay, and I got them on the super cheap. They have some issues, but yeah, we'll get into that. I'll show you the painting. So yeah, these guys weren't too bad. They the main issue was some gaps. They needed some gap filling and stuff like that. And I tried something different this time, though. I learned something new. And then if you look at their around the bases, there's this gravel stuff. Whoever put these together, they went a little bit heavy-handed with the gravel around the feet of the guys. It's kind of a pet peeve of mine when you buy minis off of like eBay or whatever, and you have to do a lot of scraping to get the gravel off of their feet, you know. But yeah, not bad. But I'll show you the cool new gap filling thing that I picked up by accident. So when you if you use this plastic cement, so yeah, the main ingredient in this stuff is acetone. So acetone will melt paint. It melts plastic, and then it melts paint too. And then I will take little pieces of sprue, like when I cut my minis off, you know, their sprues, then I'll save some of the little bits of plastic, and then I'll put them in there, and then I have one that's like a little bit heavier of a slurry, and then one that's more of like a light slurry. So it melts that plastic, and then when you do it, you know, when you put it into the gaps, the capillary action will pull it in there, and then the little bits of melted plastic, you can use them, it dries like a gap filler. But also because these guys are primed, that the primer, you know, like pushing it into the cracks, that makes that happen too. It also helps to be a gap filler. So yeah, cool new trick that I learned by accident. But it works pretty good as a gap filler. So yeah, another thing that I got was I got some Chainrasp primer, and I've never tried Chainrasp. I just know that people really like it. I'm kind of a Vallejo guy, but tell you what, man, I'm a fan. I kind of I might be taking a couple of my fanboy cards, like this stuff, it dries like super matte, and it has like this self-leveling thing, and it's pretty great. I'm definitely a fan of Chainrasp now. So I'm just gonna go around and I'm gonna give everybody a good coat of black and make sure that I just get every little angle. And this is, you know, part of the reason why I like priming with the airbrush. It's one of the main things that I use my airbrush for is priming, because you can just get into every little nook and cranny with your primer and create those shadows. So to start with, I have a few different colors of Vallejo Model Air that I'm going to be using, and I have my Thorns of the Briar Queen set in there too, because that one has a bunch of Chainrasps in it too. So I thought, well, I'll just get all these guys at once. But I ended up putting those guys away later, because I just wanted to kind of experiment with getting a good technique down on these guys, and I thought, well, I'll experiment on my cheapo guys that I got off of eBay for like $10 before I finish up my Thorns of the Briar Queen. But yeah, so first off, I'm going to use this it's Vallejo Model Air US Air Force green, I think, and it's just like a nice dark green, and then I'm gonna give all of the cloaks some of this green color. And when I was first, you know, so you can see my Harder Steenbeck evolution there, which is it's not the $300 Harder Steenbeck, but it's the $150 Harder Steenbeck. And so at first, you know, I was putting the Vallejo Model Air in there just straight out of the tube, and it was working fantastic. You know, like, has really great fine control, like fine detail. Can get into little tiny spots with it, and I'm not masking anything off, but that's not what I would typically use my airbrush for. Like, I feel like sometimes it's a hammer and then sometimes it's a scalpel, and with minis a lot of times it's a hammer, you know, when you use a scalpel, because just you have to mask things off, and it's like easier to just do it with a paintbrush or whatever. But anyways, yeah, I'm gonna start with a dark green, and then I'm gonna go in and just create some shadows with that. And I'm gonna switch to a like a dark navy blue, and then start doing some shadows from some kind of anti-zenithal, like putting in shadows from the bottom of the minis, because I want them to have a sort of see-through look. I want their shadows to be kind of bluish instead of black, if that makes any sense. But here's where I started to run into problems. Remember what I said about needing premium gas instead of just regular old unleaded? So I started to get some pretty bad like splattering, and it's just because this thing, like it has a much finer nozzle on it, and it needs thinner paint basically. Like a good rule of thumb when you're airbrushing is that you want your paint to be about as thin as like milk. If it's any thicker than that, you want to thin it down. But I was so used to using my Iwata Neo, and just, you know, like that thing, it's like a pickup truck. I mean, it always runs. It always, you know, you can put it whatever you want into it, and then you're not really gonna have problems. So I wasn't used to this. So I kind of struggled with it for a while. I struggled with changing, you know, I tried changing the pressure. I tried like adjusting the seals on the airbrush, and like tried all kinds of different things before I finally, you know, started like thinning my paint. And with this guy, well, with the Harder and Steenbeck's, I would recommend thinning your paint down to about the consistency of skim milk, because that fixed the problem for me. Just thinning my paint down to skim milk consistency. So yeah, you can see me doing like what I'm used to, just sort of dumping paint into the paint cup right out of the tube with the Vallejo Model Air. But then you can see the splattering. You're gonna see it, like it gets pretty bad before I actually break down and fix the problem. Like get out a little blister pack and then start mixing the paint and getting it to the right consistency before I struggle with it for a little while. So this is what I should have been doing from the start. So like if you see what this paint looks like when it comes out of the tube, it's just slightly too thick. So I like to use Aztec. It's Tester's brand, I think, is Aztec, and it's just a thinner, an airbrush thinner. And then I'm just gonna add enough to it just to thin it down just enough so that it's like skim milk consistency, and then dump it into the paint cup. So yeah, very much, you know, like a premium gas for this airbrush that does super fine detail. But that totally fixed the problem. And you don't need an airbrush to do this kind of stuff. It's just like, I have one, I love my airbrush, and this one's fancy, and I wanted to try it. I wanted to see how good of detail I could get, like doing, you know, edge highlighting and things like that I would normally do with a brush, doing it with the airbrush. So now I am gonna switch to the brush. So I'm using a few of these technical paints. There are Citadel technical paints, and they're dry brush paints, you know. And I'm still trying to figure out whether I like these or not. I mean, I feel like they dry really chalky. They have this weird consistency. They're sort of like a gel consistency. And then I'm using like a makeup brush to do the dry brush with them. And I'm still confused about whether these are good or not, whether I like them or not. You know, I'm really happy with these guys. I'm really happy with the finish, like how they came out at the end. But like these paints, I can't decide whether I liked them or not. I'm still confused about it. But one of the main things at this point is that I want to cover up any splatters, any of the any boo-boos that I made with my airbrush layer, and but also, you know, I want to pick out edges and stuff and make some highlights. But this is how I would normally do edge highlighting, and you know, not with the airbrush. I would do it with the brush. You know, once again, like hammer and a scalpel. Sometimes you need a hammer, sometimes you need a scalpel. So now I'm going to go around and do some washes on different parts of the models. So like I want their cloaks to be more green, and I want their like jackets to be kind of more black. So yeah, I'm gonna do a Vallejo game wash black onto the parts that I want to be more black, and then I'm gonna do the green onto the wispy trails. But I want to tone down the kind of chalky look of the dry brush, and like tie everything together on these guys. So this is going to help with that too. And I want to make sure that I get anything that's going to be metal later, like chains and chainmail keys, all that stuff, etc. And make sure that I get that with this black too, because that's gonna be another step that I usually do before I do a metal, is to like some kind of a black adding shadows to them. And I'm going to go ahead and get bases and like axe handles and things like that with some of umber, game wash umber, just to add some browns in there. And I do want to keep the kind of ghostly light, the green light on the like the rocks and stuff, like do some kind of OSL lighting, like these guys are, you know, they're glowing. But I'm gonna do things later that kind of tone that down a lot, and I feel like I lost it for the most part, but I tried to keep some of it. And same thing on the capes, just or on the green wispy trails. Just gonna, you know, define all of them and make it look like they're not just one solid piece of ghostly ectoplasm. But this is where I put away Thorns of the Briar Queen and decided to just kind of focus on my cheapo eBay Chainrasps. I'm not going to strip, you know, the paint job or anything. Like, I'm happy with them, and like, but I did want to kind of experiment with the airbrush and stuff, and knowing what I know now, I would have done things a lot differently. But yeah, I'm just going to kind of come in and do some dry brushing with the I'm going to use some Vallejo Game Color Stonewall Gray to get the rocks and stuff. And this is where I felt like I lost a lot of the ghostly glow, was because with the wash, the brown wash to kind of fill in the cracks, and then the gray on top of the rocks, I felt like I lost most of that kind of lighting, that green lighting. And I could come back in with the airbrush and do that later, but I was a little bit frustrated with it at this point. Just wanted to use the brush and get some solid results where I knew what was going to happen. Now I'm going to come in with some Citadel bolt gun metal, which is it's just kind of like an oily steel kind of color, and I'm going to go ahead and get metal. I'm going to get like axes and swords and chains and stuff, and I'm going to try and just be careful and dry brush it. But if it's in somewhere where I can't get at it with a small makeup brush, then I'm just going to go in with a brush and then do like edge highlighting with that. But when I'm painting non-metallic metallic metals, I always like to put the reflective, glinty metallic parts in parts where the sun would actually be hitting them, or moonlight in this case, because if you look at metal like in the dark, it's not shiny, it's not reflective, it's only reflective where light is hitting it. So I'm going to use my zenithal, my airbrush to tell me where those shadows belong, and then anything that's black on it is going to be, I'm just going to leave it black because it's going to be in a shadow. So now I'm going to do a little bit more edge highlighting, and I'm going to be using some P3 Sickly Skin, and it's kind of just like a little off-white, like an eggshell with a little bit of green in it, which I feel is perfect for these guys. So yeah, I'm just going to get like the little edges of their tails and stuff, and then kind of wet blend that a little bit down, yeah, cover up all of the rest of my splatters. Get these guys up to where I'm happy with them. Cover up all of my bad airbrushing. But this is going to get rid of any coffee staining too from the washes. So now I'm going to do the same thing on the cloaks with some P3 Eldritch Green, which is just like another ghostly green, very appropriate for these guys. But yeah, I wanted to, put more of that glow effect in, because I felt like, I didn't want their capes to look like they were, totally real. Like I wanted them to look more ghostly. So I want to put some ghostly highlights back in there. But again, I'm gonna make sure that I get rid of any coffee staining that I'm not happy with. Now I'm gonna do some rust effects. I'm gonna go in with some Citadel Typhus Corrosion. And I'm going to use a really, really crapped out dry brush with the bristles are like super frayed, and then I'm going to just kind of stipple it on, because I don't want it to look even, I want it to look broken and natural rust. And I'm going to do some edge highlighting with some Gun Corpse Brown to get the highlights of any like axe handles or stocks that people are stuck in. One of my favorite things about the Nighthaunt models is that like their punishments are ironic. Like these guys, this guy with his stocks, he probably waited for death because he thought that he was going to be released from his chains and his stocks that he was in up until his death, and that's why Nagash decided to punish him eternally by having him tortured by having these things on forever. Now I'm going to do the rims of my bases with some P3 Thamar Black. And I kind of learned the hard way to do this before I do any flocking. Because I have a lot of minis where there's like little pieces of static grass that are stuck in the black paint on my bases. So yeah, I'm going to do it first this time. I learned my lesson. And I'm just using I'm using a flat brush to make quick work of these bases. So now I'm going to come in and do some flocking on these guys. And I like to use Elmer's Clear School Glue for this because it dries like flat and non-gloss, and it's pretty much invisible when it dries. And also, if you put it somewhere and you don't want it there, you can get it wet. Like you can use a paintbrush, get it wet, and then push it around to where you do want it. So yeah, I'm just going to go around on these guys, and I'm going to go assembly line style, and I'm going to start with the driest ones, and then I'm just going to kind of paint in a little bit where I want it, and I'm trying to cover up not just my boo-boos, but whoever glued all of the gravel to the base of these guys. I'm trying to cover up their boo-boos too. Because some of these minis, they just went really heavy-handed with the gravel, so I'm kind of trying to cover that up with this static grass that I found. And yeah, I found a static grass that I really like for these guys, and I think I'm going to start using it for Frostgrave too. It's just like a dead grass kind of color, but it looks great on these guys. Like, I really like the way it looks. And once you're done gluing it down, just like tap it off, and then if you blow on it to get the extra little pieces off, it'll make the grass stand up, so it won't just lie flat. And there we go. That's the finished paint job. I really like these guys. I felt like I learned a ton. Like, you can see some of like the splatter stuff on them from the airbrush still, but I mean, like, I know how to fix that now, so I feel like I can bang out armies of Nighthaunts like super quick and have them look really good. I got these guys done in just a few hours, so I didn't get all of them done. I didn't get all of my Thorns of the Briar Queen and all the rest of those guys, but I was happy. Like, I definitely like these guys a lot, and I'm happy to have them in my collection. And I'm still thinking about doing a mini giveaway because I just hit 100 subscribers, and it's cool. So yeah, but I don't think it's going to be one of these guys because I'm not entirely like happy with them. I'm happy with them, but not that happy with them where I want to like give them away and show them off. So anyways, yeah, I have some more experiments that I'm thinking about doing with some Legions of Nagash guys, and then we're going to be doing Warcry and Frostgrave reports soon.